We wanted powder this whole trip, and we've got it. So much of it now, we can do nothing with it. Our car is stuck, our skidoo is stuck, we can't see. Welcome to Kyrgyzstan!
Kyrgyzstan's recorded history spans over 2,000 years, but somehow none of its emperors, heroes or battles entered my history classes. And that was one of the reasons I decided to go skiing in Kyrgyzstan. But let's be real, you don't go to Kyrgyzstan just for some history you've never heard of. I've made a career out of adventure, filming TV shows and documentaries in some of the most austere, remote, isolated and hard-to-reach parts of the planet. And this trip was no different. When I showed up to the airport, the check-in lady had no idea where Bishkek was. On top of that, she asked me what the airport code was. Although unquestionably her job, at that point I was going to Google it anyway, just to make sure my bags would actually arrive. Now at this point you need to meet a few characters. First up is Mim, an old friend from college whose mad idea this was in the first place. This is Sergey, who answered our emails and met us at the airport. Then there's Nikolai, our mountain guide and translator with a stutter, probably where most of our miscommunications originated. Our other ski guide Dennis, who spoke no English but will become known for his pointing at mountain skills. And Vlad. There's always a Vlad. Vlad was our driver, bribed the police for us, and provided the unwanted male attention. Last is me. You won't see much of me because I'm the woman in the film. I'm also the only one that can film, so stuck behind the camera. So, where the hell are we? Kyrgyzstan is a small landlocked country in Central Asia, bordered by China and a bunch of other stands. Although bordered isn't the most accurate description, given there's chunks of these countries inside Kyrgyzstan. We drove through a grayscale landscape that honestly did no favours to the stereotyped image I had of an ex-Soviet state, to arrive at our first stop, Caracol ski resort. This humble collection of ski runs was an appropriate start to the adventure to come.
We're day 2 into our trip here. We spent yesterday and we will continue today to get our ski legs back.
Legs warmed up, we got back in the car, and then skidoos.
And now we've been transferred onto skidoos to make the last leg to Yurt. We're not sure where we're going or how long the skidoo ride is going to take.
Second stop, the Yurt camp. We visited Kyrgyzstan in the first 2 weeks of March, which ordinarily is a prime window for fresh pow. But then again, Mother Nature has the best comedic timing of all. So instead of a few Instagram-worthy yurts buried in several feet of snow, well, I did my best to frame out the mud. Now you could easily confuse the Kyrgyz for Russians. They speak Russian, read Russian and drink vodka. I'm not one to perpetuate stereotypes, but when this happens, and this, so we drank a lot of vodka. Well, I got good at sipping one shot all night because honestly, when you're doing this all day, and trying to coordinate this, vodka doesn't help. In fact, right now might be a good time to mention this was my first time backcountry skiing. So naturally the first day wasn't so great.
I have to say, there are easier ways to get to the top of a run. 3,800 metres in Kyrgyzstan. We're about to descend it very quickly, in theory.
After walking uphill for 5 hours, I hadn't left any reserves to actually get back down. So I fell over from exhaustion and limped my way back into the Yurt camp with Nikolai taking up the rear. I later thanked him, to which he replied, "It's okay. Women, they come, they fall." Needless to say, that was the last time I fell that trip. You know, doing my bit for feminism, staying on my skis. Next stop is the gold mine, but with the lack of snow, which is key for snowmobiles, we were instead rescued by this rugged Soviet truck that, when loaded up with our fluoro asses, looked like your grandpa at Christmas. He'd fought in the war, for Christ's sakes, now look what he's doing. This journey went on for a while, partly because we had no idea where we were going, but we did make a pit stop at the Caracol Autobahn and Home Depot. In our efforts to find fresh snow, we had climbed up to the highest plateau in the country, an area owned by a Canadian gold mining company. And this is where Vlad comes in. Gates open for Vlad. So we putted up a series of long switchbacks and finally onto a snow-covered road.
We're about to get snap frozen. It's minus 20 outside. We're at 4,000 metres.
Sneakers.
Sausage, cheese.
Sausage, cheese, bread. Yep, I'll take all of that. Anything I can get at this point to fatten up.
So, skidoos out, our leg saver for getting across the valley floor, and started our slow slog up to 4,300 metres.
Well, 4,000 plus metres not much air left for anything more than plodding.
We've walked all the way up here and there's high avalanche risk to go ski those slopes.
This is always going to be the catch when hiring a local guide. They won't take risks with your life, but they will get you into a foreign-owned gold mine for a few turns.
That's China that way, and that's my ski run home. Alright, time to de-skin.
Oh, that altitude. My head is pumping.
Local guides will also sort out authentic accommodation and cultural activities, such as getting a Russian makeover.
So, I'm not entirely sure what happened, but we're at dinner, there was a lot of Russian talking, and now I'm getting a makeover to look like Madonna.
Now, the best I can do for context here, because Nikolai got drunk and, contrary to popular belief, alcohol doesn't help a stutter, is that it was National Women's Day and our host didn't have a daughter.
Is this to clean my face?
Сейчас умываться будешь.
Okay.
Got that?
Good?
No.
No.
So I suspect she took pity on me being the only woman in the ski crew and felt she had to rescue me from my goggle tan and make me look like a real woman.
Oh my god.
Much better?
Yeah, yes, of course.
Да. Вот теперь в натуральную величину. И вот сядь туда, пусть тебя узнают.
You need subtitles for that.
Еще
Thank you.
прическочку.
I went to bed that night with a full face of makeup on. I felt terrible at the idea of washing it all off just after she spent 40 minutes caking it on.
Oh my
Где-то
god.
как-то так.
Yeah, good.
Well, at least the men liked it. It was National Women's Day after all. Next stop was a meteorological station, only accessible in winter by skidoo, but now we had too much snow.
And what happened to our ride?
So no, it took off and now it's not moving.
So Dennis had to dig a path for the snowmobile all the way to the station. Sorry, let me be clear here. It was a hut.
And we're at a weather station.
A hut that housed 2 meteorologists who trudged up through the snow to manually collect weather data, noting it down with pencil and paper, then using Morse code, send the information to a radio transmitter to a larger station in the capital which would put it on the website, which we'd access on our phones using the weather app. We drank here for one night before schlepping up the mountain again for what was my favourite run of the trip. You might think after a yurt, some lady's home and a weather hut that we were due in for a hotel. Snow camping. Good for character, shit for sleep.
So here we are, we've made it inside our tent. A new system, a tent inside a tent, because it's cold.
For a trip that started out with no snow, Mother Nature got a kick out of this one. On our last day, she delivered so much snow that we couldn't see the ground from the sky.
Снег! Powder снег!
Our car is stuck, our skidoo is stuck, and we can't see.
So we bailed on our ski tour and opted for a few runs at a closed ski resort nearby.
So it is our last day in Kyrgyzstan, and we will not let snow get in our way. Despite it being low visibility, we have found a resort, although it is closed.
We're at the top, we're going to ski down, if it's any good, for 120 bucks. They can open the entire resort for us. That's not 120 bucks per person, that's $120. They'll start the lift.
And if not, what's our ride back up?
We have a van waiting at the bottom.
So in case you missed that, we were skiing through a closed resort. But for the cost of a one-day ticket in Aspen, they'd start the entire chairlift. Or,
And now we walk out.
we ski out to the road where good old Vlad would pick us up, chauffeuring us back to the top.
That's how you get to the top of ski resort when it's closed.
Cheapest resort skiing I'll ever do. A trip to Kyrgyzstan, of course, isn't complete without visiting Bishkek. Just because the airline doesn't know where it's taking you doesn't mean it's not bucket list worthy. The city is a museum of old Soviet relics, and as I wandered through giant memorabilia of a bygone era, I reflected on a ski trip that will not be remembered for its skiing.